Okay, the objective for this chapter really is to explain that voluntary exchange occurs when all participating parties expect to gain. And this is why we trade. Anytime two parties trade, both parties think that they are gaining. When you go down and buy your lunch today, or you did go buy your lunch today, you gave them money and they give you food. Well, you both feel like you're gaining. If you didn't feel like you were gaining, then you wouldn't have made that deal. But there's also times that the government steps in and does things for us. Now, you may not feel like you're gaining, but the government has made a decision that we want a roundabout, or we want, or the government or the community needs bicycle paths or parks, and in the long run we would all gain. So what this chapter talks about is how the government intervenes in our pure free market economy to hopefully help out the good for everyone. All right, free enterprise. In the United States, we have free enterprise. For the most part, you're free to open and start up your own business, but we do have some laws. And the more laws we have, the more restrained or the more restricted we are. And sometimes that takes away from growth, the more laws there are in place. And as we've talked about in class, we have to weigh that balance. In the United States, there are 18 million unincorporated businesses. Now, unincorporated, what that means is, well, they're not corporations. Like Pepsi is incorporated. All of the companies, not countries, all of the companies that you see on the north wall over by the door, the Cat, the Kodak, the General Motors, Kraft, all of those are corporations. And some of your parents own corporations. If it's Joe Schmo Incorporated, well, that's a corporation. Or if it has an LLC afterwards, that is a corporation. LLC stands for Limited Liability Corporation. When you opened up a lemonade stand or if you mow lawns, you are an unincorporated business. So there's lots of those out there. 3 million of these are owned by minorities. And then here in the United States, it's called the land of opportunity because you're able to come here and open up a business and do whatever it is you want to do. Just look around at the businesses locally that are owned by people outside that would appear not born here in the United States. So that's why they come here. It's the land of opportunity. Why is America successful? Well, we have lots of things going for us. One, there's lots of land. There's still tons and tons of land. You can still homestead land out west. Now, that land is not very valuable, but there still is land that you can go out and homestead for basically little to no money. When I say little, I'm talking $100 over the next 2 years. So we have lots and lots of land. We have lots of natural resources, coal, oil, water, gold, and the list just goes on and on. And then also the flow of immigrants, the people who want to come here and work, the people who are educated and want to come here and make a good life for themselves, and also as a result, that makes a good life for us. And because of that freedom to come in here and work and do whatever it is you want to do and do the jobs you want to do, whether that be to be a doctor or an engineer or to work in the trades and build homes and do jobs to build homes, whatever. That is what has helped make America successful. Very, very few countries, if any, have those four combinations that has helped make them successful. On here is just a list of basic principles of free enterprise. It's a listing. You might be asked to list that on a quiz or test. You definitely want to know what those are and what each one of them are. So if you don't understand any of those, check your book. If you still don't understand what any of those are, be sure to check with me. All right, hopefully you've started to realize, and I've mentioned a couple times, that this chapter is all about how the government steps in to try and above and beyond what they would normally do in a pure free market economy. In a pure free market economy, our government would do very little. They would protect private property rights, and that's really about it. So our government obviously does a lot more than that. We have roads, we have parks, we have libraries, we have national defense. We have all kinds of things that the government steps in and does. We have Social Security, Medicare, yada, yada, yada. And everybody certainly disagrees to what level the government should do those types of things. Well, we have in econ, we have different terms that we use for these areas where they step in. And in this slide and on this video, we talk about public goods and where they step in, where the regular market fails. So the government steps in where if there was no government, where we would fail. So in other words, if we had no government, we certainly wouldn't have the high quality of roads that we have, but yet we're all happy we have those. So fortunately, we have the government that steps in and takes care of those roads for us. Now, some people might disagree on how that money should be spent. As an example, somebody might disagree that all of that money shouldn't have been spent down at Stones Crossing and 135 to make that such a nice intersection, or some people may not like roundabouts. I love them. I think they're great. I wish there was roundabouts everywhere. If you've traveled up on the north side, there's so many roundabouts. There's very few stoplights. You never have to stop anywhere. You can just continually flow. But those come at a cost, and some people don't like those. I won't name some of the teachers that don't like those, but I love them. So, but most people, I think, have grown to like them, and hopefully you do too. But that's just one area where people would disagree maybe on what would be an efficient use of our money to try and take care of a market failure. And that market failure was that it wasn't an efficient interchange, so something needed to be done. Some people would say it was efficient for the cost. So here's a video on market failures, which will certainly help explain it and what public goods are. All right, free riders were talked about in the video, somebody who takes advantage of something that somebody else has paid for. People who are not willing to pay for a particular good or service but would benefit from it if it were offered as a public good. Maybe one quick and easy example would be Independence Park here by Center Grove High School, Center Grove Middle School, Center Grove Elementary. That's been around for a few years now. That was paid for by the people of Johnson County. Well, if you live in Perry Township, you can certainly come down and use that. That would be considered a free rider. Not that anybody really objects or anything, but if all of a sudden people from Perry Township start coming down here and tearing things up or whatever, or more, people from White River Township can't even get in because all the people from Perry are coming down here using our park, maybe we would get upset. But as it is now, the cost is diluted enough amongst all Johnson County citizens that nobody really cares that somebody from outside of our area is using it. But that's just one quick and easy example of a free rider. It's not really an issue, but it is what we would call a free rider. One of my favorite topics, externalities. I don't know why, but externalities are cool. The free rider thing, I think it's interesting, where government decides to step in and not step in, and where some people think they should step in, and with the whole presidential election and everything, it's how much should Medicare do? How much should Social Security do? At what cost? And then externalities, though, hit home a little bit more when we think about it, because the examples we use are a little bit closer to home. An externality is when a third party is affected, and you've kind of seen that in a couple of videos you've already seen. And I've got another video here for you. This one's about 7 minutes long, so it's a little longer than most of them, but it's pretty good. So an externality is if your neighbor has a dog that starts barking every morning about 5:30 and wakes you up. That is a negative externality. You have no control over that dog, but it's impacting your life. Somebody abandons their home right next door to yours, and the grass goes really, really tall. Well, you were not directly involved with that exchange, with that trade, and they decided not to pay for their house anymore. They decided not to pay their mortgage anymore. But yet the value of your home went down, and now you got weeds, and you got varmints growing, coming in next door, and who knows what. So that's all negative. Now, somebody comes in a couple of years later, buys that house, and fixes it all up. That's a positive externality for you. You didn't do anything, and all of a sudden that house got nicer. So an externality is when a third party is affected. If you're sitting here in class or whatever in econ, and another example of an externality would be if every day somebody in class just passes gas. If it's Miss Warner or Miss Miller or Miss Tracy, just every day it's like, oh my gosh, it just stinks so bad. That would be a negative externality. Now, if those same three people would put on some perfume and smell really nice, it just makes your day that much more pleasant. Boy, that is an example of a positive externality.